Good evening. My name is Steve Pratt. Today is July 10th. It's approximately 6:40 p.m. on July 10th, 2013. This is a meeting of the Anchorage Municipal Urban Design Commission. So we will move into the roll. Do we have a list? Let's see. Okay, you do it? Okay, go ahead.
Jim Sawhill.
Here.
Jeff Dinwiddie. Thomas Tiber.
Here.
Steve Pratt.
Here.
Monica Sullivan.
Here.
Monica Emerton.
Here.
Sherry Winchester.
What did I do with my list of the short board? What's on there? Okay, we have 5 commissioners present. I'm going to read the policy in terms of postponement of public hearing applications. When there is a short 5-member board or commission and a postponement is offered to and agreed to by the petitioner, they will be moved to the next regular agenda. This should occur within 30 days, which does not require renoticing the case for new public hearing notices and advertising, etc. If the petitioner is willing to postpone but unable to attend the next available meeting date within 30 days, the petitioner has a one-time only option to choose the next date certain he/she can attend at no extra fee. When a postponement is requested by the petitioner, there is a rescheduling fee, and a new public hearing date shall be determined by the Planning Department. This will put their case in the next available cutoff date queue as if they were submitting their case for the first time. Today we've got one case on the regular agenda, and that is the petitioner is the municipality of Anchorage. So who is representing the municipality in that case? Is somebody here? Could you come forward, please?
Hi, I'm Chris Wood with Dell HKM.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chris. Thank you for coming here. We do have a short board. Does he have the option to move forward tonight? And he's got to agree to that? Okay, Chris, we can still hear the case today with the short board. It does take 5 votes in favor of doing that. So the question is on behalf of the municipality, do you wish us to try to move forward with this case today?
Yes.
Okay. Then let's go ahead and do we need a motion? Nope. Okay. Call the. Okay, now we'll go. Okay, now let's go to the. Thank you, Chris. Okay. Okay, now we'll move. The next item on the agenda is disclosures for items that are on the agenda today. So I will just, I guess, go around the room. I think that we've all got disclosures. Mr. Sawhill.
Submit my button. And will abstain from voting on resolutions 2013-10, 2013-13, and 2013-14.
Thank you. Ms. Sullivan, Ms. Monica Sullivan, do you have any disclosure? Oops, sorry.
For the record, I was recused from case 2013-033 and will abstain from voting on resolution 2013-010. Also, I was absent from the June 12, 2013 meeting and will be abstained from voting on resolutions 2013-009 and 2013-017.
Thank you. Before I move to my own, are there any other disclosures? Thank you. I'm Steve Pratt, and for the record, I was absent from the May 22, 2013 meeting, will abstain from voting on resolutions 2013-015 and 2013-016. I was also absent from the June 12, 2013 meeting, and will abstain from voting on resolutions 2013-009 and 2013-017. Are there any other disclosures to come before the body? Okay. If not, I would ask for a motion to, I would ask on the consent agenda if there are any items. Oh, I need a motion to approve the consent agenda. Ms. Emerton? Ms. Emerton moved and Mr. Tybor seconded. Now, are there any, does any commissioner wish to pull any items from the consent agenda? Mr. Sawhill?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to pull case 2A and 2B. They're the two school district cases.
Okay. Anything else? Okay.
I have a point of order.
Yes.
On the remainder of, on the resolutions to be approved, which is the remainder of the consent agenda, we do not have enough members who were present to approve those resolutions. So what I would ask is that we have a motion to postpone the approval of the consent agenda to the end of the meeting.
Is there a motion to delay approval of the consent agenda till the end of the meeting? Yes.
I move to change the approval of the consent agenda to the end of the meeting.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded. Is there any objection to moving the approval of the consent agenda to the end of the meeting? Okay. Okay, so the consent agenda we will take up at the end of the meeting after we've completed our other business. So now I guess there's no unfinished business. Right. So we'll now move to the regular agenda.
Right.
And we have, I guess does it matter what order we take these? Okay. Okay. Okay, we will take items that were moved from the consent agenda, the two Anchorage School District cases, and when we move them at the top of the regular agenda, and then we will take care of the item from the Municipality of Anchorage. So the first item to be heard is case 2013-094. The petitioner is the Anchorage School District. It's a request for final review for an amendment to a site plan review for a public school facility, Service Hanshu High School, for stadium improvements. Okay, this is not a public hearing, so do we ask? Oh, okay. Where is he? Oh. I will note for the record that Mr. Dimwitty, our chairman, has arrived, and I will change places with him so that he can continue conducting the meeting. Mr. Dimwitty? Does that work for you? Okay, let me see. Let me get out of here. All right.
Okay, we're going to resume the meeting. Apologize for being late. Do we have a staff report on case 2013094?
Mr. Chair, as this is a final approval,
I don't normally do a staff report, but I can say that in terms of compliance with UDC conditions, all of them are met.
Commissioner Sawhill, would you like to speak to why you pulled them?
Sure, Mr. Chair. I have a couple questions from the applicant. They can come forward.
For the record, my name is Dwayne Adams. I'm with USKH representing the petitioner, the Anchorage School District, in this case.
Mr. Adams, I had a couple of concerns and I was reviewing the final site plan. I guess my first concern was losing that circulation road in the back and the impact that might have on the site circulation. And I know, Service is famous for their traffic congestion in the morning with school buses and dropping off. And I'm not familiar with the school, and so I was curious if the closing of that circulation road would change the bus circulation when they're dropping off.
It does not affect the bus circulation at all, and the way it, through the chair, Commissioner Sawhill, the way it was previously put together prior to this amendment, there was no circulation that really occurred behind, between the field and the pool, which is the big change. The congestion is an interior lot that tends to get locked in. There's bus traffic in there, and that pinch point is the same pinch point that will remain. It doesn't change the configuration of where that circulation is, where the problems are.
So the buses will exit the same way they are today?
Yes, it doesn't change any of that, but it does get rid of some hazards that road provided, as well as the fact that it was an area that was unseen by a lot of people.
My other concern with the closing of that road is it essentially leaves I think it's Trailside Elementary that's there with only one way in and one way out. This secondary, that circulation road in the back was their secondary access in for emergencies. And I'm a little concerned that we're leaving an important facility with one way in and one way out.
Through the chair, I'd like to speak to the client for just a second. Thank you. Through the chair, Commissioner Sawhill, that drive that I believe you're referring to was not a driveway necessarily. That it does remove the ability of Trailside to take a left and go out that exit way, if that's what you're referring to, but it does not remove the ability for them to make a quick right and then a quick left in front of the pool. So they still have the same exits. They still have to go through that same access aisles that serve the parking lot. That doesn't change. But they still do have the ability, if there's congestion at Abbott Road, to go through in front of the pool and exit that direction.
Is there a driveway between the pool and the access to Creekside? I thought that was a continuous median and there was no breaks.
And Creekside?
Creekside?
Trailside?
Trailside, sorry.
Yes, there are two drive aisles that enter the school.
Right.
And so there's still access. Those don't change. And the exiting traffic turns right. They could certainly turn right, or on the southernmost exit, there is a drive aisle in front of the pool, and they certainly have the ability to, they take a right and then a quick left in front of the pool. But if your point is that there's continuous unbroken green space, that's correct. That is correct.
Okay. The other issue that I was concerned with was the lack of pedestrian facilities to support the new stadium. There's no real good pedestrian connections from the driveways to lead people to the stadium. The first example is the main parking area on the east side of the school. You've identified a pedestrian route, but there's no pedestrian facilities that go with that. So they're just walking down the road. And then from the main parking next to the pool, there's really no pedestrian facilities that connect that to the stadium area. And they'll just be walking down drive aisles. Because currently the school's set up to feed into the school from all the pedestrian facilities, but this new draw is going to be more linear, and there's really no facilities for them.
We are providing a course there from the school. There is a sidewalk that collects from the back side of the pool, south side of the tennis course. It does provide for pedestrian traffic. From the east, you're correct. This does not address that. There's a lot of activity that occurs there. There is the ability to walk. There is a bollard or a guardrail, if you will, and there is space between that guardrail and the road for people to walk. Yes, they will walk in the street. There's no doubt about it. And anyone coming from the gym or the main body of the school crosses parking lots as they do for every other activity. So this does not provide any new sidewalks. I don't argue that.
And you don't feel any additional sidewalks are necessary with this?
It's a pattern. There is the ability. There's a sidewalk on the would be the west side. You can see that here. It collects a lot of the traffic, but it's a pattern that's existed at this school. This school, there are direct routes from the eastern parking lot into the school, and then through. There is a bridge that connects from the gym to the school, and there's a large amount of pedestrian traffic that emanates from that, and then it basically just diffuses through that parking area is what happens on that side. So the traffic really doesn't occur at that back lane. That traffic actually comes from those eastern parking areas and goes under that bridge, which is not buses parked there. There's not typically cars in there when there's big events. So it's kind of a free-for-all pedestrian area. And even if there were a sidewalk on the north side of that walk, that's not where people park. If you're familiar with it, it's the parking area is south of what's called the Little Gym. Little Gym is it's. Let me see if I can find a graphic. If you go to page 26 of your packet, it kind of gives you an idea of what happens. And some of the parking moves very quickly from there. The bulk of the parking runs right at the face of the gymnasium that you see there and cuts across because that's where the entry is going to be. And so it's quicker to cut in front of the northernmost building, if you can see my finger here, and cut through that area. So, and it is, as I mentioned, it's a free-for-all, and students walk everywhere. My kid went to that school, so I'm familiar with that. There certainly will be some traffic along that roadway. Whether that's a hazard, it's slow-moving traffic. It's primarily pedestrian. Typically, that's not where the accidents happen.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Sullivan.
Hi, Mr. Wayne. My concern was very similar. I walked through the area, and it seems that the parking lot in the east takes you to the school, but there's no access to the field. Similar concern, but I just heard your response. And my question is, would it be safe that if we cannot fix this and put a sidewalk, that maybe the pedestrian route that goes through the school gets closed when you have big events, so there's really a walkway for people?
Well, my concern about a condition like that, we're going to hear that again in a bit on another case, that closing these operational concerns, they get lost, and they become a condition of approval. You approve it, everybody feels real good, it disappears after this, and I'm not sure that it's while that may be a good condition of approval, I mean a good proposal, I'm not sure it's a good condition of approval, because when we move into the operational things, those just get lost. I have Edie Knapp from the school district. I might talk to her for a second. Through the chair, Commissioner Sullivan, Ms. Knapp informed me that they're doing a renovation right now, and when this addition is built, there will be no vehicle traffic through there, so I think it solves that issue.
Okay,
and there will be pedestrian provisions, though, so it does deal with that.
So the master plan is still very current, and that's where you're going. Okay, that's good.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Hearing none. I will entertain a motion. Commissioner Sawhill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Case 2013-094. I move for approval of the final site plan, final review of the amendment to the site plan per AMC 2115-015 for a public school facility, Henshaw High School, service Henshaw High School, for stadium improvements, subject to staff's recommendation on page 3.
Thank you, Commissioner Sawhill. Seconded by Commissioner Emerton. Commissioner Sawhill, would you like to speak to your motion?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I intend to support the motion. I had some concerns, and I guess I continue to have some concerns over some of the pedestrian routes. I think they were mostly answered by the applicant today, and feel more comfortable with the proposal after hearing that clarification. So I intend to support the motion.
Thank you, Commissioner Sawhill. Commissioner Sullivan. Thank you, Commissioner Sawhill. Commissioner Emerton.
I also intend to support the motion. It seems like it's been a good redesign. It also supports policy number 44, design build improvements for long-term use, policy number 78, municipal facilities are accommodate year-round multipurpose activities, and policy number 86 to encourage private and public collaboration.
Thank you, Commissioner Emerton. Is there any discussion? Is there any opposition? Hearing none, that motion passes. Our next case is case 2013-095. Anchorage School District amending a site plan, which has been pulled. Commissioner Sawhill, would you like to speak to this?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The reason I pulled this is I wanted to give the Turnagain Community Council, Kathy Gleason, an opportunity to come up and speak to her letter and the changes she would like to make.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, this is a final meeting, I don't know that there's an opportunity to hear from the public. That's why we had asked her to send in the letter representing the Community Council. Dwayne Adams is here, and he can speak to what the school district sentiments are regarding that letter.
I would still like to hear from Ms. Gleason.
If
You could rule me out of order, but that's what I would like to do.
I was going to say you can ask questions of Ms. Gleason, but she can't testify.
Okay, no problem.
Here's what we'd like to do. As a chair, we'll go ahead and we'll have Mr. Adams please come forward to speak to what was laid on the table. Item. We have a supplemental July 10th. I'm sure you're familiar with it. We'd like to hear from you, and then if we have any questions, we'll ask them directly of Ms. Gleason. Does that sound good, Jim?
That'll work.
Through the chair, Mr. Sawhill, just to provide a little background, at our last meeting before the commission, we had a final resolution of approval, or a final condition of approval, and that condition of approval was to meet with the community council and to put together, to the extent we could, some agreed appropriate conditions for approval. For the most part, I think we have some strong agreement with respect to those. There were we did, to meet deadlines, provide input prior to a second meeting. We weren't able to satisfy fully Ms. Gleason's and the members' concerns at the first meeting, so we had a second one. So we did have a second meeting after that letter was submitted. So following that meeting, there were some additional conditions that Ms. Gleason suggested. And if you'd like, I can go through the conditions we provided and some background to those, as well as those that she provided. And what I suggest is you're welcome, and I'll provide our response representing the school district with respect to how we feel. And you're welcome then to ask her whether I've strayed or misrepresented or represented appropriately.
Well, I guess my question would be, Mr. Adams, is we have the 8 conditions of approval that are in our packet that were recommended by staff, and I would guess you're okay with those?
Through the chair, Commissioner Sawhill, we have internally had a meeting at the school district, and the one thing that I do, and this reflects back on 2 of the conditions that Ms. Gleason has proposed, one of them is number 3, the breezeway issue. And here's the issue, and it gets back to the same thing that I discussed with respect to the last case, and that is that incorporating operational issues into a condition of approval, there's a couple problems. Number one, personalities change, people forget about these conditions of approval, they lose their way, and conditions of approval are much more effective prior to the implementation of the actual project because you have a hammer. But if this falls down, then it's imperative that the community council bring this up, or the condition of approval gets lost. And that happens a lot. I've seen it in the time that I've served on commissions. The second issue is that if we provide something, the breezeway issue or a couple of the others that are here, operational concerns that are found not to be necessary. For example, if we find that over the next 5 or 10 years that there's no parking on the east side of West Romig, but we are obligated to provide someone to stand there and watch it just in case, do we have to come back to this body and submit a revised site plan approval request to get that removed, because that is the only way to change that condition of approval, is to come back. So therein lies the problem with operational issues. And with respect to this, the Anchorage School District, for the record, is absolutely on board with doing this. So it's not an issue of whether they agree or not with respect to the necessity to do this. They're fully on board with that. But what we suggest is that this is more appropriately perhaps an agreement between the Anchorage School District and that body who represented that interest, perhaps the Turnagain Community Council, and that these issues be a memorandum of understanding between those bodies, or perhaps be something that is handled by the Parents-Teacher, PTSA, Parents Teachers Association, because that therein is a one-to-one relationship. If the thing fails...
Hold on a second.
Sure.
I think we may have technical issues.
Okay, sure.
If you would just pause for a couple seconds and let me check the control room, because I'm not exactly sure what just happened.
I can write it all down if you'd like.
Record your own testimony.
I'll write fast.
Off the record, Joe, I think I'm going to ask you to back up. I kind of got lost in terms of which conditions you were talking about. We can do. I can do that on the record.
When we get back, I'll hit the ones specifically. Testing 1, 2, 3. We're good. Are we ready to go then? No?
There's a delay. Hold on.
Oh, okay.
We have audio, and it is going out to the public on the web, and it is being recorded. We just have problems with the monitors.
Okay, please resume.
Okay, with respect to the issues I'm discussing related to these operational concerns, number 3, which is a breezeway issue that we provided, number 9 and number 10 that the Turnagain Community Council provided, those are the issues that are of concern. And on all 3 of those, we're in agreement to pursue those, to do that. The concern, though, is whether that's appropriate, and so what we would recommend is that they be set aside and be dealt with perhaps with a condition that requires a school district to work with the Turnagain Community Council to resolve that, or something along those lines, and then and enter an agreement or an understanding or something like that, but move that off the table as a specific condition of approval for the reasons I've outlined. And then if the Turnagain Community Council and the Anchor School District at some point decide that those things really aren't relevant, we don't have to come back, pay $4,860 for a new site plan review process application to get one condition changed.
So just to clarify, are you requesting condition number 3 be removed?
Yes, and incorporated into a separate, perhaps condition of approval that the school district enter in. And I can give you some language if you'd like. Also that 9 and 10 be bundled in that same motion. Now, with respect to the other recommendations of the Turnagain Community Council, they had some wordsmithing of our language. We have no problem with any of those. That's fully acceptable. I've spoken to 9 and 10. Again, we're in agreement with those, but we would like them bundled into something that requires a separate agreement or some other resolution. With respect to number 11 that you see, I question whether a condition of approval that requires us to comply with municipal code is really a condition of approval. If this is, does this mean that this is the only condition code, municipal code we have to comply with? It's typically legislative bodies don't reiterate code that already exists. If you want to put that in, that's fine. We'll do that, but it's your matter, and we're fine with it if you want it. It doesn't seem appropriate. 12 and 13 are fine. We're fully acceptable to that. And then on the next page, the last page of their letter, there was another one that states, after the stadium is built and put into use for varsity football games, a noise study to specifically evaluate reflected sound levels off Romick Middle School and West High School buildings shall be conducted to determine if applicable noise mitigation measures are needed to reduce stadium noise impacts on the adjacent neighborhood. And this is an issue that was directed to us to ask of our noise study and Mr. Stephen Thorburn, who did our noise analysis. And he said, well, first of all, there's a lot of articulation to the building. There's at least a 10% reduction of reflected noise relative to directly transmitted noise. We really don't think it's a problem, but we really can't make an analysis of this, and it's something that would need to be studied later. The reality is that the distance this travels is 650 feet to that wall from the home where the noise emanates from, 650 feet. It hits that wall. It's a relatively low building. It's not as high as those that you see facing Minnesota. It then has to be reflected, and the nearest home is 1,050 feet away. So that's 1,700 feet, or a third of a mile. So there's a couple things. First of all, is this really an issue that demands us to spend another $5,000 or $7,500 for a noise study to determine whether that issue is relevant? So that's the first question. The second one is, let's say that Mr. Thorburn comes and we pay him to do this noise study, and he does that, and he says, well, you could put some, you could reconstruct that wall in a certain way. And there's been suggestion of, well, maybe there could be some fencing or some plantings. Plantings, I talked to Mr. Thorburn, plantings just don't work. Psychologically, they work. They don't do anything for noise. And as a landscape architect, I would really like them to do a lot. They just don't do much for noise. But let's say we identify a capital project to change that wall. So how does your condition of approval then reflect the necessity to change that wall then? Are we going to quit playing football until there's a CIP approved and a bond entered by the citizens of Anchorage that changes that wall? So it's just a problematic condition from a number of things. We don't think it rises to the level of demanding, first of all, the expenditure of the money. That's our opinion. The Turingan Community Council, I would suggest, would argue that. But the second issue is, how are we going to address that? Does it demand us to enter a new construction contract? And how do we fund it? It's just a problematic condition, and we'd like that not be imposed. So that's a summary of our response to those issues. I'm happy to address them further, and I don't want to suggest I'm representing the Community Council, and they certainly would have a different perspective of that latter issue.
So to summarize, their suggested changes to items 1 through 8 are fine?
Yes.
And their conditions 12 and 13 are fine?
Their conditions 12 and 13 are fine. Yes, they are.
Thank you, Mr. Adams.
Commissioner Pratt.
My question was answered. Thanks.
Yeah, and with respect to that, I do have a caveat that we would like 3 bundled into some. Yes, thank you.
Are there any other questioners of the petitioner? Commissioner Sahil, would you like to ask the Jernigan Community Council. Any questions directly
If you
related?
allow me to ask Ms. Gleason a question, I will.
I'll allow you to ask Ms. Gleason a question, but please keep your testimony to that question specifically, to what you've submitted.
Thank you, Chair.
Ms. Gleason, why should we include conditions number 9 and 10 that you recommended?
Well, both of these were discussed at that second meeting that Mr. Adams referred to that we had with the school district and USKH, and we were all in agreement at that second meeting that that was an appropriate thing to do. So it's because we feel like parking will be an issue, and to open up that gate, number 9, to have the school district open up that gate to have access to the Dempsey Anderson Ice Arena, assuming that the school district and the municipality can come up with a joint use agreement, would just be another condition of the use of the stadium to mitigate any parking off-site on neighborhood streets. I mean, it's all of these conditions from our perspective. The end result is a cumulative positive way to mitigate some of the concerns that we feel that need to be addressed associated with the use of the stadium. So this in and of itself may or may not be that big of an issue with regard to, from your perspective, on what kind of conditions you put on it. But we think that's just another good step that could be looked at and incorporated into the use of the facility and the parking issues associated with it. With regard to number 10, let me see. This also seemed to be a good consensus with the entire group that met. We thought of how parking is controlled when we go out to the State Fair in Palmer, and when we go to a large event down at Sullivan Arena or Benboki, where you have people that say, okay, park here, okay, come this way. Just have a more controlled parking environment for large attendance events like varsity football games. Just makes sense. And Mr. Adams actually indicated that he himself is a volunteer and does that for certain events in town, and it seems to work pretty well.
Mr. Adams indicated that he felt these were operational issues, and typically what we approve and require are hardscape, hard improvements, and we don't normally delve into operational issues. And he felt that you guys could deal with these operational issues kind of on the side of UDC, not really include us. Do you think they'll follow through on these operational issues that they've told you they'll do?
Well, I can't speak for the school district. Unfortunately, we did not talk about these items at our second meeting in that context. I wish we had. The idea of a memorandum of understanding between the school district and the council did not come up at all. So I would think that that's something that's doable, and you as a body can determine whether these are more appropriate and taken care of under that scenario versus being conditions of the site approval. I'll leave that up to you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I will entertain a motion to approve. Or further discussion. Commissioner Sawhill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In case 2013-095, I move for approval of the final review for amendment of the site plan for AMC 2115-015 for a public school facility, West High, for stadium improvements, subject to staff's conditions 1 and 2, I'm going to delete condition number 3, staff's conditions 4 through 8. And again, these are items 1 through 8 except 3. I would like to move those for approval subject to the edits provided by the Turnagain Community Council. And then I would also like to include, I know this is going to mess everybody up as far as numbering, but conditions number 12 and 13 as proposed by the Community Council. So I guess those will become 9 and 10.
Thank you, Commissioner Sawhill. I think we follow that. Seconded by Commissioner Tiber. Would you like to speak to your motion, Commissioner Sawhill?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I intend to support the motion. I think one of the things I would like to do is commend the school district for their efforts with working with the community, having 2 additional meetings to work out these details. I think that was a good thing and got a lot accomplished and saved us a lot of time. So I think that was a good thing. And I think they have a good project, and stadiums are getting built in every high school now, and we have common issues, but I think we're successfully working through them and coming up with a good project with minimum impacts to the community as we can. So I intend to support the motion.
Yeah, Commissioner Tiber, would you like to speak to the second?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I also intend to support the motions and echo Commissioner Sawhill's comments. I'm particularly pleased to see the collaboration by the school district and their representative with the Turnagain Community Council. So I intend to support the motion.
Thank you, Commissioner Tiber. Commissioner Pratt.
Just a point of clarification, do we have 9 conditions or 10?
There are 10 conditions.
There are 10.
Or actually, there are 9. You're right.
Okay,
Yeah,
that's what I thought. Thank you.
As for discussion, how does the body feel about any language or a possible 10th condition for the MUI or MUI, the memorandum of understanding? Are we going to just not address that whatsoever? Or is that, what do you think, Commissioner Sawhill? It's your motion.
Mr. Chairman, I didn't think that was appropriate for us to place that condition on. I believe the school district will continue to work with the community, and I don't believe it's necessary.
Thank you, Commissioner Sawhill. Commissioner Pratt.
Yeah, I agree with those comments. To impose a condition that says that the school district will consider doing this or will consider doing that, it seems to me that they've been very forthcoming and very willing to act with the community. And I also think that these operational issues should probably be something that's beyond the purview of this body. Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner Pratt, and thank you, Commissioner Sawhill. Is there any further discussion? Is there any opposition to the motion? Hearing none, that motion passes. And now we're on to our regular agenda. We have resolution case number 2013-092, the municipality of Anchorage. Yeah, the municipality of Anchorage, site plan landscape review for public road, 48th Avenue extension and upgrade. Do we have a staff report?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Boutte Company, on behalf of the municipality and the representative, Dell HKM, are requesting the context-sensitive solution transportation project site plan and landscape plan review for A Street and 48th Avenue extension and upgrade 51st Avenue to Cordova. The goal of the project is to increase road connectivity in this area. One of the roads is a local road, and the other one is a neighborhood collector. A Street is strip paved from 50th to 51st. The project will upgrade this section of A Street and extend it all the way to 48th Avenue, and then connect 48th Avenue across to urban collector standard. The goals and policies of the comprehensive plan, Anchorage 2020 policies 37, 38, and 54 are met. The Anchorage pedestrian plan goals 1 and 5 are met. The cost, the construction budget is $2,200,200. The total landscape budget $88,000, of which $1,650 will be devoted to plant materials. Only 2 new trees are proposed: paper birch and a Colorado spruce. The plan sheets show sight distance triangles. No landscaping appears to violate clear vision areas. Compliance with the Planning and Zoning Commission's review of the design study report. The department finds that all of the conditions of approval from the DSR and the Planning and Zoning Commission are met. The proposed plans before us comply with the conditions of P&Z's approval. The department recommends approval of this project subject to conditions 1 through 3 on page 4. Staff has spoken with the petitioner, and they have no objection to these conditions. They're here prepared to answer questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Would the petitioner come forward? I'm sorry, were there any questions of staff? Thank you. Come on forward. State your name and spell it for the record.
My name is Chris Wood, last name W-O-O-D. I'm with Dowell HKM, representing the Municipality of Anchorage.
And I assume you have a presentation for the project?
I do. Let me grab my boards here.
Okay.
So Terry Schoenthal was scheduled to give the presentation tonight, but he had a family emergency and had to leave town. So as the project engineer for the project, I have a just short presentation. So this is a project management and engineering department project. The primary purpose of the project is to improve connectivity and complete the roadway network in the greater project area. As noted earlier, 48th Avenue is a neighborhood collector. A Street is classified as a local street. The proposed cross-section for A Street are 2 11-foot travel lanes with 3.5-foot shoulders. And there's a sidewalk that was proposed on the west side, and we are currently evaluating adding a sidewalk to the east side, looking at the impacts to do so. 48th Avenue this cross-section consists of 2 11-foot travel lanes, a 3.5-foot shoulder on the south side, and based on traffic department comments, we are looking at adding a parking lane on the north side, 7-foot parking lane. There is a pathway, a detached pathway on the south side, and then proposed attached sidewalk on the north side. There's 2 major intersections in the project area, the intersection of A Street and 48th, and the intersection of 48th Avenue and Cordova Street. At the intersection of A and 48th, we are proposing a raised intersection. We're proposing colored concrete crosswalks and proposing stop control on A Street with 48th Avenue being a through traffic. At 48th Avenue in Cordova, we are proposing a four-way stop and colored concrete crosswalks. Landscaping opportunities in the corridor are limited. We're proposing topsoil and seed in the unpaved areas, and we are looking at replacing 2 trees that were in the northwest quadrant of A Street and 48th Avenue. We're proposing to replace 2 trees planted by the property owner because our proposed improvements will impact those 2 trees. One of them is a white spruce, or one is a paper birch, and the other a Colorado spruce. And we agree with the recommendations by staff.
Thank you. Are there any questions of the petitioner? Commissioner Pratt.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Is this the area between the, I think, is it by the motels there, like between Motel 6 and the Hilton Hotel on A Street, or is this further south, or do you know?
It essentially, along A Street, it connects the hotels there on the south side to the hotels there on the north side. So it is that segment of A Street.
And the next, on the question of moose fencing, if you go with taller trees, would you still put in moose fencing?
Yes.
Okay.
This is Ray Mariani, our
Okay.
staff landscape architect.
And my last question is, in my own yard, I'd really like to have no-mow grass. What is that?
Ray, would you like to speak to the no-mow grass?
I noticed that on the schematics on page 29 and 30, it had mowable grass on there, but in your documentation it said you're going to use no-mow grass in it. I was just curious as to what that was.
The no-mow grass is a seed mix specified by Municipality of Anchorage. It consists of a couple different varieties of native grass seed that grow to 6 to 18 inches and don't require being mown and maintained. And that was something that Parks and Rec really emphasized. They didn't want a landscape that they needed to take care of. So they didn't want us planting turf grass.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Ray.
Actually, I do have a question about that because you don't have schedule. You're talking about Schedule D, which is Kentucky and hard Juar fescue is what Schedule D no-mow is. But in the plans, you have wildflower mix or a Schedule A, which both of those are maintenance grasses. Is Schedule A for where you damage the existing lawns, or?
Yes, correct.
And then the wildflower, where are you planning on using wildflower?
Again, that is what we were going to use the no-mow. It was a combination of some wildflower seeds and native grass seeds.
Yeah, it looks like you have mostly, there's some Arctic red fescue, which is a native, and alpine blue grass, and then there's 3 different kinds of wildflowers. So that's what your no-mow mix is?
Yes.
Okay. That's the answer to your question, Commissioner Pratt. Commissioner Sawhill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess just a comment. I think this is the fewest trees I've ever seen in a project. 2. I don't know how you get away with that on a collector road, but evidently you're gonna. My question and concern is first on A Street. I believe you need a sidewalk on the east side. I think Title 21 and the Design Criteria Manual requires sidewalks on both sides when you exceed 1,000 ADT. And with these two large undeveloped tracts along there, the 10 acres that Dean Widener owns that's going to get filled with condos, and the 5 acres that is there that's I-1 is going to get developed as additional hotels. I can't imagine you're not going to break 1,000 ADT on that road. So I don't know how you don't put that second sidewalk in and meet Title 21 requirements. How are you justifying only one sidewalk?
Good question. The projected ADTs are in excess of 1,000. We had originally looked at the requirements with one sidewalk, and based on traffic department comments, we're looking at adding the sidewalk on the east side. There are significant utilities that will be impacted by constructing the sidewalk on the east side. And like I said, we're evaluating those impacts and see if it makes sense to add a sidewalk on the east side.
And then my next question was, on 48th Avenue, your plan is showing detached sidewalks on both sides in plan view, but your cross-section's showing something different?
Correct. One of the traffic department's comment, we recently had our 65% review meeting. One of their comments was to add a parking lane on the north side of 48th Avenue. And due to right-of-way constraints, an attached sidewalk on the north side seems more reasonable.
Yeah, if you're pushing the curb over, I don't know how you would do it. So are they both 5-foot sidewalks on 48th? There's one an 8-foot multi-purpose trail.
The detached pathway on the south side, we're also evaluating. It was originally proposed as a 5-foot sidewalk. We're looking at bumping it up to an 8-foot pathway.
So we'll have 8 on one side and 5 on the other? One attached?
Correct.
One detached? Okay.
This is a pretty good swamp. And looking at your cross sections, you have a pretty light dig. Are you going to float the road on? Is that the? I mean, are you going? There's quite a bit of peat going through here, particularly along the backside of a Fognax property. Are you guys going to clay layer? It doesn't look like it.
Our geotechnical data, I believe the peat and the silt was deepest toward the intersection of A and 48th. And we plan on removing all of that. Okay. I think it's to a depth of about 7 feet.
And the other question I had kind of comes off of Commissioner Sawhill's comments is, if this was private development and the property owners on the undeveloped tracts were required to build this road, I think it would be built with sidewalks and a little more landscaping. How does the MOA justify not having more trees and more landscaping? And because it's a muni project that, I can see this same project going through private development and a more significant set of plans and more significant landscaping and pedestrian improvements being called out.
The direction we went were based on review comments from municipality Parks and Recs Department. They indicated they did not have the budget manpower to maintain any landscaping enhancements in these corridors, and therefore they were looking at the least amount of maintenance required.
From the private development side, I think every owner in town would say they don't have the budget to maintain their landscaping, but we don't get away with that.
Understood.
Just saying. I don't have any more comments. Is there any more questions or discussion?
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Sawhill.
Yeah, I've got one more. I am considering adding an additional condition of approval. I wanted to let you preview it and see what you think. And the additional condition would be to provide a sidewalk on the east side of A Street or obtain a waiver from the municipal engineer. Would that be acceptable condition?
May I confer with our project manager?
Yeah.
1 minute. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any further questions? Hearing none, thank you. I would entertain a motion. Thank you, Commissioner Sawhill. Thank you, Commissioner Sawhill. Commissioner Pratt.
Yeah, I intend to support the motion. I agree. This I actually drove past there, and I think last week I was down there. I think that this will be it'll be a good improvement to the area. It'll allow for more ingress and egress to the hotel, some development. It'll look better, and it does appear to me that this project does conform to the 2020 comprehensive plan. Policies 37, 38, 54, and also, especially with the addition of the last condition that Mr. Sawhill made, also complies with the pedestrian plan, and it will allow for more pedestrian traffic, safe transit in the area. So I'm going to support the motion.
Thank you, Commissioner Pratt. Is there any discussion? Commissioner Sawhill, would you like to speak to your motion one more time?
Sure, Mr. Chairman. I intend to support the motion. I would agree with Mr. Pratt's comments concerning conformance to standards and goals as analyzed by staff. I would agree with that. And I think A Street's going to be a very busy street. It's going to be a very convenient cut-through route up between International and Tudor, and I think the addition of the sidewalk's appropriate. I will also say getting a waiver from municipal engineer is a very difficult process, and they will not accomplish that easily unless there's tremendous justification for it or substantial expense with the shallow utilities. So I'd like to see it go there. I hope they don't get their waiver, but we'll see. I do want to give them a chance to build a reasonable project if there is substantial costs. So I will be supporting the motion. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Sawhill. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, is there any opposition to the motion? Hearing none, that motion passes. All right, moving on to, we'll do the art next. Our next case is, or next item on our agenda is discussion of 1% for art, woven wall mounted artwork located in the main lobby of the John C. Flanagan Anchorage Police Headquarters. Do we have information from staff on this?
Mr. Chair and Commissioners, yes, it's just a memo from the Curator of Public Art seeking an approval from the Commission to go ahead and deaccession that 1% for art piece.
Thank you. Is there, will it be replaced with anything?
I don't know. I'm sure it will be replaced. I don't know that they know at this point what will replace it.
Thank you. Are there any questions of staff on the decession of art? I'll entertain a motion to approve. Thank you, Commissioner Emerton. Second by Commissioner Tiber. Commissioner Emerton.
Yes, I move to approve the deaccession of art for the woven wall-mounted artwork at the the John C. Flanagan Anchorage Police Headquarters.
Thank you. Commissioner Tiber. Second.
Yes, I intend to support the motion.
Thank you, Commissioner Tiber. Is there any discussion? Is there any opposition? Hearing none, that motion passes. Okay, we're going to take a couple-minute recess. We have to figure out something about the consent agenda, who was here, who wasn't here. Okay, we're back to the first item, consent agenda. We have resolutions for approval. Commissioner Emerton.
I move to poll A, B, E, F, and G until next meeting.
Thank you, Commissioner Emerton. Commissioner Sawhill. You queued up. Oh, I saw you queued up.
No, I wasn't. That was from before.
Yeah, the motion is that we are pulling those and postponing them.
And could you read the list one more time?
A, B, E, F, and G. So that'll leave on the consent agenda items C and D under item number 1. Okay, that has been, motion's been made by Commissioner Emerton, and we have a second by Commissioner Sawhill. Is there any discussion? Here. Is there any opposition? That motion passes.
Point of order. We had a motion to approve the consent agenda at the beginning of the meeting. Then we postponed it to the end of the meeting. But that other motion to approve the consent agenda was on the table. We postponed it to the end of the meeting. We pulled the 2 cases, and now we enacted on them. We've also pulled the consent agenda items that we don't have enough members to vote on. We pulled those. So we still have the motion to approve the remainder of the agenda on the table, and I just need a vote on that. And that'll approve what's left. Not necessarily, but they did, and that's fine. That's not a problem.
Now we're back to the original motion on the consent agenda, and the remaining items are 1C and 1D. And that motion is still on the table from earlier in the meeting. Is there any discussion? Is there any opposition? That motion passes. And the last item of the meeting is Sharon.
Yes, it's just a continuation of the art theme. Angela Dema, the curator of public art, has asked if the UDC would like to be part of the jury appointments. There are 5 projects in the loop for public art, and if any of the commissioners would like to sit on those juries to select the public art. It involves a few meetings, and they're spaced out over about 2 years. It's not a huge commitment, and actually I've done it before, and it's pretty fun. And I'm about to do another one, I think for the Ship Creek project. The 5 projects are, the first one is the West Romig. It's got a budget of $100,000 for art. The next one is ML&P. It's got a budget of $250,000. Aurora Elementary School. And then there's the Anchorage Police Department. And then the Girdwood School K through 8. Any volunteers? Okay. Oh, Monica?
Yeah, I could do the Girdwood School.
The Girdwood School?
Yes.
Okay. And then I just had one final thing. This regards a project that was heard a couple of months ago. It was the Anchorage Football Stadium. They were replacing a public facility there it was gyms and locker rooms and bathrooms and that sort of thing. And another planner in our office had reviewed this. she since has moved on. She accepted a job offer in Colorado. But I just happened to see the landscape plan, and they were using, they had trees were 2 Swedish columnar aspen, and then there were, the shrubs were blue rug juniper. Blue rug juniper doesn't get any higher than about 4 inches, and our minimum shrub size is 18 inches. So that one was, you know, doesn't meet our landscape code. And then the second choice is they were putting in ornamental grasses, 2 types of ornamental grasses. While I really like ornamental grasses, it's not a tree or a shrub, so they can't use the ornamental grasses to meet municipal requirements. What I've said before when designers have called to say, can I use ornamental grasses, I just tell them, yes, you can, but first you've got to meet your minimum tree and shrub requirements. If you meet your minimum shrub requirements and in addition you want to do ornamental grass, that's great. But you can't substitute an ornamental grass for a shrub because it's not a shrub, it's a grass. So I just want to point that out to you all.
But isn't the blue rug juniper, if it has an 18-inch spread, it's the same as 18-inch height?
No, it's not. It's got to be minimum 18-inch height. And spread is spread. It's not height.
Okay.
But I'm going to talk, this is a municipal project, so I'm going to talk to the project manager tomorrow to see if anything can be done at this point to substitute, you know, real shrubs instead of what was chosen. And hopefully we can work something out. That's all I have.
Thank you. Any other discussion?
It's my turn. Well, I've enjoyed working with you all, but this is my last UDC meeting, and I leave the municipality on August 2nd. That's my last day. And hang in there, guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Jill.
We'll miss your notes.
All right. Yeah, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Commissioner Tiber, second by Commissioner Emerton. We are adjourned.